you can see a little photo of the acoustician with his wife, and his wife looks very much like Seraphine.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is Seraphine's dad. All right.
Yeah, the protagonist hair kind of gives it away.
Yeah. It really is protagonist hair, isn't it? Oh no.
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode 118. I'm your host, Ryan, here with the other host, Hedge.
What is up, everybody? Excited to get into this one. It's a little different. Well, change of pace as far as our recordings have gone.
Yeah, definitely a change of pace. If you guys are coming from the Varys episodes and you stuck around for all of it, commend you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
A lot. We hope you liked Varys as much as we do. If you skipped all that, it's fine. If you're a Star Guardian at heart, this is going to be the episode for you. We're talking about Seraphine. Or is it Seraphine? We're going to Seraphine.
Yeah, I like Seraphine.
There's an E at the end.
Yeah. It's appropriate. Seraphine sounds right. But we can't talk about her yet. Because what's at top?
No. Housekeeping. You can listen to us everywhere. Email us at podcastcore@gmail.com. That's COR. Visit us at podcastcore.com for all of our info. Follow us on all the platforms and leave a like and a comment because that helps. The engagement helps with discoverability. The easiest way how we've gotten this far is word of mouth. So tell a friend to turn up the volume when listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
Pump up the jam.
Pump it up. Once again, dating ourselves. Start us off with the spell.
All right. Well, the spell, if you can hear it over the creaking of my joints, is going to be Crowd Pleaser. All right. So this is a 2-mana burst speed spell from PNZ, and it has give an ally +2/+0 and quick attack this round. But it also has flow, create a new 2-cost spell in hand. As far as for Seraphine, especially once we get into the card of Seraphine, this is a very useful little card that you can splash in if necessary for your build because of the flow on it. It's going to help you as far as with your champion level up progression. But it's also it's not a bad combat trick. Like the +2/+0 is a decent combat power trick right there. But the quick attack is really nice because you can usually especially if you're flowing in, you're increasing your game plan while also getting rid of a blocker on your opponent's side, which is nice. But of course, we got to go in for the flavor. I like this one because it is just a very simple and direct quote from Seraphine that's going to set the tone for this episode. And that quote is, "I can't hear you, Zaun." All right. I don't have K-pop singing voice. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to leave that one to G-Idol.
You lied to me. It's a cool concept. And we'll talk about, even Zaun being referenced here and how this plays into the overall story. But this takes us to our follower.
Yes, and as far as our follower, it's going to play a bit into the Zaun bit there because we're going to be talking about the acoustician. I know
word.
I'm probably butchered it, but I feel okay with it. Acoustician. All right, so this is a 3-mana follower from PNZ, and it is a 2/3 that has strike, create a random new 2-cost spell in hand. And once again, this is really good as far as for the Seraphine gameplay style because you need to be creating these cheap spells to get to that level up point if that is the plan for your deck. And this one also serves a purpose of being having a blocker because it's 2/3, so not too easily burned out by spells. So you're more likely than not going to be losing it in combat. But since you're going to be getting the strikes, you're getting the spell as well as preventing damage to the face. This is all good. But the flavor text on this card is is going to point out that the acoustician is a very important character to our story today, because the flavor on this card is once he had dreamed of leaving Zaun and traveling the world with a song in his heart. Now the world was asleep in her room, waiting for the songs tomorrow might bring. Oh, who's the world? Who's the world?
Yeah. We're I think it's pretty clear that this is Seraphine's dad.
It's Seraphine's dad.
Yeah, it's Seraphine's dad.
It's Seraphine's dad. Like if you doubt us, just go ahead, do yourselves a favor and look at the card art for this card. Like whoever did the art for this one clearly had a lot of fun as far as imagining what this guy's workspace looked like, because there's a lot going on here. But you can see a little photo of the acoustician with his wife. And his wife looks very much like Seraphine.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is Seraphine's dad. All right.
Yeah, the protagonist hair kind of gives it away.
Yeah. It really is protagonist hair, isn't it? Oh no.
So this takes us into our champion, which is the lady herself, Seraphine. And as this kind of leads perfectly into her story, because Seraphine's parents were both Zaunites, and they worked their way up to give her a better life, for a chance in the City of Progress. And the City of Progress is actually where Seraphine is later born, in Piltover, that is. So she grows up loving music, singing, since her parents owned a hexacoustic shop. And that's a reference again to her dad's card.
And it's very important to point out that Seraphine is born in Piltover. This is something that we covered a lot in some of our other P&Z character episodes, but more specifically with our Zaun characters. So if you listen to our episodes like Echo and Zeri, but Zaun doesn't have it nice, especially if you've watched or listened to our Arcane episodes. You know that Zaun is just not a happy-go-lucky place. But the fact that Seraphine's parents were able to get into Piltover before Seraphine was born means that she can live a life without being compared to the Zaunites, or like she's going to be like different than her parents. It's that whole idea of like citizenship and where you're born.
Exactly.
So this is a very important detail for her story as far as like when we expound upon it later, right? Yeah. As far as like for her bio, it's not too important, but this is like getting to Piltover was the biggest goal for the parents, so that all the struggles they grew up with, their child wouldn't have to deal with at all in their minds. So
yeah, and we get a reference here, a deep reference to some X-Men, if you guys are familiar with that, because as Seraphine grows older, she begins to sense feelings of all those people around her. And it's not quite telepathy, but this is something that becomes overwhelming due to the constant bustling of one of the busiest places in Runeterra, the City of Progress, Piltover. So her parents notice this, and they have this expensive, they save a bunch of money, and they have this expensive special headphone crafted for her out of a rare hextech crystal. Beats by Jayce, if you want to. And this, what it does is it dampens.
I was trying to sneak a swig of water when you said beats from Jayce.
But this is used to dampen her magical hearing, and it also allows her some normality again, so she can get used to her own thoughts first. And the reason I brought up X-Men is because it's a very common plot with Jean Grey and how her going to the X-Mansion to find a solution is done. Professor X kind of takes the same route with getting her used to her powers, because she is so powerful when it comes to telepathy and telekinesis.
And like specifically with the X-Men story, like Professor X was able to really empathize with Jean Grey because that's basically all his power, right?
Yeah.
But for Seraphine, she doesn't have that. Like this is something that was kind of new to everyone, but thanks to like her parents, as far as already getting to Piltover, so they have more access to resources around them,
Yeah.
as well as already being in touch with the technology needed to deal with this, because her father was an acoustician. And then we also know that like the hex tech that they work with is specific to sound. So this was the perfect storm as far as for Seraphine to have the safety net to grow into her powers. So, spoiler for the story, this is not going to end in Jean Grey style. This is not going to be a Jean Grey ending. So, like, it's not a bad spoiler, but just spoilers.
Yeah, it's definitely a more lighthearted approach to this concept. But after a while, as she's wearing these headphones, she's now getting used to the quiet again. But in this quiet, she starts to hear this older voice, this singular voice, or a amalgamation of all the voices more focused. But it's kind. It's kind, and it's kind of giving her more like a conscience type approach of reinforcement and solitude, but also guiding her to manage the voices around her and to seek out or take hold of this power she has. And this gives her a confidence to test her music out, not just where she's comfortable in her own space, but in places that she's not comfortable in or aware of, which this leads her to say, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm not just only perform in Piltover. I'm going to use my headphones less, and I'm also going to go to Zaun. And this is a big step for her.
Yes, and not just a big step for her, but this is also a big step for her parents as well, right? Because so much of their struggle was to get themselves out of Zaun so that their daughter wouldn't have to grow up in that life. Yeah. But one of the things that's pointed out in the story is that a combination of before as well as after Seraphine really grew into her power, she was a very outgoing person. She's always going out as far as to like the people in the streets and all these people around her. So since she is such an outgoing person, like the more that she's going in touch with her powers here and opening herself up more to the songs around her, it's like, okay, at some point she's gonna outgrow this city and she's gonna go back to Zaun. And I do like that she's going back as far as with the mission, as far as to like hear different songs, but also to try to use her power for good. That's nice. I am a little trepidatious still that it's coming from an ancient voice and a hex tech crystal.
Yeah.
Everything in lore has taught us that's not okay. This is
sounds like it's living to me.
It sounds like a trap to me. All right. And we don't even have to look outside of League of Legends as far as for like, if a voice is coming from something, it's not good. We just did a lot of recording for Varus, which is, for before this was a talking bow. And all the other Darkin are like talking weapons. I'm a little trepidatious, but we're going to Zaun on good terms. All right. So, maybe we'll bring it up later.
It's a tinge of darkness and, like we said, a very lighthearted story. So as she heads down to Zaun, because she has this power to hear feelings of those around her, she immediately notices the difference, right? She grew up in Piltover. She knows what those voices sound like, those feelings sound like. And down here, they're a lot much rougher. They're less sand down. And she can immediately tell the struggles of the Zaunite people. And through that, she understands, which is great, that getting along, quote unquote, won't be so simple down here. That mission she's on to take these voices, the feelings of her fans that are much different than those that she feels topside, and try to convey hey, it's not that bad. That's not how this is going to work. But she didn't give up. She wanted to find a way to connect both of these areas through her music. And that being said is, Hetch made a great point that she is very outgoing, but that doesn't mean she's not nervous in everything she does. And you'll notice this with a lot of, if you ever talk to performers or artists, no matter how big they get, they'll tell you that it's not that they don't get nervous anymore. It's just that they keep moving forward through that nervousness to perform, but they still get that feeling.
Yeah, like they just learn how to operate with the nerves.
Yeah.
Like you never truly get over that stuff. But for this, like especially the different sounds of the songs that we hear, or that Seraphine hears from, the, like, for lack of a better term, like the spirits of the Zaunites.
Yeah.
Um, like the roughness of it, part of it that is mentioned in the bio is that a lot of them are worried about like the day-to-day struggles that they suffer because of the Kim Barons,
Yeah.
which we have covered a lot with our Arcane episodes. And if you want something a little less involved to try to like figure out what it's like growing up in a Kim Baron controlled world, go listen to our Zeri episode. That really covers a lot there. But of course, like it's really weird because Seraphine gets to empathize immediately with the Zaunites because of her power.
Yeah.
And that's something that no one else has access to. Like no one else is going to be able to go from Piltover into Zaun and be like, oh, I get it. Only Seraphine's going to do that. So it puts her in a wonderful position for when she goes back to her parents to be like, I want to help these people and I have an idea.
Yeah, she's trying to create a bridge through the only power she has, which is her music and her magical ability. So she has her parents actually take this dampener they created, modify it, and turn it into this platform structure that you're familiar with from the game. And it turns it instead into an amplifier because she feels this will be the one way she can turn her music into the feeling that she's getting and push that back to them. And hopefully that resonates. She's hoping that this strong feeling of unity through her music will then reflect in the world around her. And then the second part of this plan is she wants to take this platform midway between Zaun and Piltover. We know this is Entresol from all of our other episodes, if you want to know more about that. And this is where she performs. And this allows fans from both to experience her music at the same time. And this is the way that she's come up to promote her unity and allow her feelings to mingle between both and give everyone an equality or equal access to her music to spread her message. So it's one thing that, it's cool that her being young, understanding where her parents came from, immediately understanding the grind that happens in Zaun, and then finding a way within her power to give back or to participate in a quote unquote revolution. Because we have people doing their own, like Zeri's participation in it. We know what Echo and Vi and all of them are doing in their participation of how they want to protest or move towards a more equal city. But her finding out her strength in this so quickly at such a young age and being able to do that is really impressive and well written for a story. It doesn't turn her into some, oh, I'm going to save everyone with my magic powers, right? I am the key to unity of these two cities, because it's so much older and so much bigger than that.
Yeah, and because like for perspective, we have to remember that like the points of the story where we're reading a lot of these bios would be, quote unquote present day Runeterra. And a lot of the events from media like Arcane happens years before the current date of Runeterra. And which is probably a good thing, because could you imagine trying to watch Arcane with how heavy that story gets?
Yeah.
And then Seraphine just flies in like, yeah! and it's like, no, you can't do that. All right. So, but for that reference though, Arcane, really heavy story. That is the backdrop that Seraphine's coming into.
Yeah.
So generations of people that grew up with that backdrop. And that's what she's trying to find a way to protest in her own way there. Yeah. And this is the kind of character you need for this kind of story, because like we mentioned the other characters and almost all of them are doing a Vi approach of punch first, ask questions later. Yeah. So yeah, like it's this is a lighthearted thing that you need, and it is surprisingly well written for how quick it is. But
And if you've gotten this far and you haven't noticed yet, based on the timing of when Seraphine came out, the style of character her promotion was backed by, it's Taylor Swift. Seraphine is Taylor Swift, guys. Okay.
look, hey, now hang on a second. I am going to protest in KDA. All right. Like I'm going to protest in K-pop here. All right. So because obviously Korean pop music has had more of an influence on League of Legends than anything else.
Yeah.
So this is IU. Do not besmirch the name of our Korean goddess.
Yes, the more well-known
Damn straight. I don't even know who this Baylor Twist is that you spoke
of. So that's where our story ends, and this takes us to our card, which is 1, very simple, but 2, encompasses her perfectly. So on her first side, she's a 2-cost 1/4 that says, when I'm summoned, create a random new 2-cost spell in hand. And then for her level up, you've played 9+ new spells this game. So she doesn't have quick attack. Cool. But she's an early drop, and she's meant to kind of guide the style of deck you're playing. And Hetch has already talked about the concept of flow and new cards, which fits very well because, as we talked about, her jumping between Piltover to Zaun, she's trying to always find new ways, new sounds, and incorporate new things into her music to bring everyone together. So that fits very well.
Yeah. I also like it because it is just, you are giving yourself up to RNG.
Yeah.
If you're building like a Seraphine-esque deck. And it just fits perfectly, right? Because Piltover is a giant city, and Zaun is also a giant city.
Yeah.
And there's barely anything dividing the two. There's so many different people there, and if she can hear all that music, sometimes you just got to go with the flow.
Yeah.
And so like that matches this perfectly. We also may go to jail, but 2 mana 1/4, dumpy seal of approval.
Yeah, it's true.
she gets a dumpy seal. We're just not going to advertise it too much because I'm not ready to go to jail.
So when she flips, she becomes a 2/5. So it gets that standard +1/+1. She still has the 2-cost spell buff in hand, but now she gets, when you play a new spell that cost 2 or less, copy it with the same targets. So you get a karma effect here at a lower cost, essentially, if you're playing a Seraphine deck.
It's also a balanced karma effect because it's only new spells that this happens with. Like, Seraphine doesn't care about what pop music was popular last week, all right? Like, Seraphine is only here for the new jams, baby. So it is balanced in that sense, right? Like, this isn't going to be that a karma-esque card where it's like if the opponent gets another turn with it, it's game over. But at the same time, you still want to deal with this threat because it can get out of hand depending on what new 2-cost spells they've got in hand.
Exactly. So this takes us to the flavor. That's why we're here. Yeah. So the flavor side for the first one, it says Seraphine and her dad never talked about her secret trips to the Undercity or the subtle upgrades she kept making to her stage. She was sure he forbid her from participating in Zaun's grungiest musical duels. That sounds so corny. But one night, he tucked the flyer under her door, and all she could do was smile and get to work. He knows. Yeah. They obviously probably have family in Zaun. Like, it's not, she probably has cousins she doesn't know about, or, he probably has old friends that work in the shops that, are built around Entresol. So it's like, yeah, he's going to figure out what's going on. You're a big pop star.
Like since you and I live in America, we get this, we get this probably firsthand as far as like the idea of like Piltover and Zaun, where like if you work in a building with other workers, like if there are a lot of foreign people that come to work here in America to send money back home.
Yeah.
He's probably sending money to someone in family, like some family at home, and then she's hopping the border like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go party like in like just in like Laredo, Texas,
Yeah.
and I'm not going into Mexico at all, Dad. Um, and then he's getting a call from cousins going, hey, your kid's down here? Yeah, I know. Like,
Yeah,
we get that. We
it's
we
one of
get
those
that.
things, right? But he's cool about it. He's her parents. That's one thing that's also great about this story. It being lighthearted is, well, first of all, she has parents, so it's not a street urchin story.
It's not a street urchin story.
But also they're supportive of what she's doing, and you can tell their whole goal is to ensure that she has the best life she can have, especially with her ability.
Yeah. But that takes us to the flavor on the second side of the card, which is she never heard anything like it. Maybe nobody had. Together on that stage, they made something new. And like you're really like to really kind of breathe in what that could mean, or like what that is. Just open up the full card art for this. Um, I don't I don't recognize any characters in it myself,
Yeah.
but they're like I'm sure somebody who's more keen-eyed than me could probably pick it out. But these are the people, as far as it's like, yeah, we've never heard music like this before, but we're doing something together, and and that is what Seraphine wants. She just wants everybody to kind of get together and just to try to make the best out of life, and that's a great lesson to put into a story. Like there's more that puts all of us as human beings together than separates us, and a lot of times we have to kind of block out the extra noise to be like, what, you're human just like me, let's just do our best to get through the day together.
Yeah, it deals with, we know Seraphine is more pop music, but it definitely is a punk rock message. And that's something that's more emphasized as she goes down as on.
Yeah, and with that, if you open up that full card art, she's definitely with some punk rockers there. They're like, you know what, I don't like your jams, but the message is good.
And with that essentially brings us to the end of her bio and the card. So that's a pretty breezy episode. So as always, thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with the next episode.
Yeah, take care, everybody.